Welcome to the Friendly Podcast Guide, sorting through podcasts so you don't have to. I'm Andy Smiley, and I want to help you discover the right podcast without having to listen to an entire episode. Now, let's talk podcasts. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Kristen Walker-Smith is one of the hosts of this week's podcast, 1 Minute Scripture Study, and she is so much fun to listen to. I can't wait for you to feel the energy that just emanates from her. But first, here are some details about the show. The show description is quality LDS scripture study in 1 minute. It's possible. This podcast is for busy teens, moms, families, and anyone else who finds themselves wanting quality scripture study but is lacking the time. The length of each episode varies a little bit. The daily episodes are about 3 minutes long. That's 1 minute of the actual study with an intro and an outro. The show is totally kid ear friendly. Some of the bonus episodes are about topics that parents may want to bring up themselves before listening to it with their kids, like homosexuality or plural marriage. The show is ongoing and new episodes are available every weekday. Before we learn more about the vibe of the show, we're going to take a quick break to talk about Olive and June nail polish. I just repainted my nails last night and I love having new color on my nails, and truly it's a little therapeutic for me to be able to paint my nails. I use their Mani system and my nail polish will stay on for a week with no chipping. You can get 20% off a Mani or Pedi system by using the affiliate link in the show notes. Now we get to hear from Kristen about how this podcast came to be and how one of the people she interviewed kept blowing her mind. I am so excited to talk to Kristen Walker-Smith today about her podcast. First of all, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to hang out.
I'm glad you're excited. First of all, can you tell me, I love the concept of a really short podcast. Mm-hmm. My podcasts are 10 minutes. What made you think to do a podcast like that?
So I have taught from the scriptures for years and I love the scriptures. My podcast, by the way, is 1 Minute Scripture Study. And so I was listening to a fantastic podcast about the scriptures and it was diving really deep into it. And as I was listening, I was like, oh man, this would be so good for teenagers. This would be so good for my kids, but they would never listen to something that's 45 minutes long. And then the heavens parted and angels sang and it was like, ah, but they would listen to something that's 1 minute. And I was like, they would. So I just honestly, it was handed to me, this whole idea to have a scripture study podcast Monday through Friday, where we dive into a verse of the scriptures as deep as we can in 1 minute. And then we jump out and apply it to our lives and then we're done. And it's been awesome. It's been great.
That is awesome. Tell me, how long have you been doing it?
I started right before the pandemic. So literally the month before everything shut down. So yeah. How long is that? 2 years-ish? 2 years.
Yeah. And I feel like it's a little obvious, but I would love it if you dove in a little deeper to what you want people to get out of your podcast.
The main thing is I feel like it's really important for moms, especially, but teenagers, families, whatever, to have an opportunity to feel like they've connected with God every single day. And to be honest, that is not always super feasible in the form of, I am going to open my scriptures and I am going to spend an hour in here and really connect with God. And so if I can help people have a 1 minute connection with God, I think that can just bring the spirit into their day and it can help make the rest of their day better. So I'd say
Definitely.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, and I like the idea of you don't need to dive in for an hour, right? You can get something out of it. You can have the spirit with you by 1 minute diving deep and then thinking about it for the rest of the day.
Yeah. And that's why we have a takeaway of the day every single day in 5 words or less. And so it's basically the principle you just learned in 5 words or less. And I have found that kids love to keep me honest on that. I get so many messages from people, my kids always count to make sure it's 5 words or less. And so it's just something to ponder on the rest of the day. So hopefully it's not just a minute. Hopefully it's something that comes to you over and over as you're going throughout the rest of your day.
Definitely. Can you describe how, the vibe of your show or the feeling or how other people describe it?
Depressed, mostly, really sad.
I hope not.
No, it's not. It's fast and fun and inspiring. And I think that's one of the things is like someone mentioned once, it's like a power punch of inspiration for their day. And I'm like, I love that. I think that's great. And sometimes that's all you have time for, or sometimes that's what you need right before you send your kids out the door. You're like, oh, we need a power punch of inspiration to help these kids not mess up today. And so that's what it is. It's a fun power punch of inspiration.
I absolutely love that. I feel like you need to like get a sticker or something.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Of inspiration. I would buy that.
Okay.
I'd put that on my water bottle.
I'll make one for you.
Oh, thank you.
Merry Christmas.
I would feel so special. And this question also feels obvious, but I want to double check. Your podcast is kid ear friendly, right?
Totally. Yes. There are sometimes in bonus episodes. So we do twice a month, and I'm saying I have a co-host, Cali Black, and twice a month we do bonus episodes where once in a while we will dive into a topic where we keep it G-rated, but it's a more sensitive topic. And so we'll say that at the outset, and we'll just say, hey, this is kind of a more mature topic. If you don't want your 3-year-old listening, then go ahead and find yourself a closet, So
totally. Okay.
No profanity though.
Sure. What are some examples of topics that you cover in those like more deep dive episodes?
So I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ. And so sometimes we will cover things like we've covered the history of our church with plural marriage. And I mean, that's not like a bad topic, but I'm like, well, what if a parent wants to approach that with their kids on their own and they need to make sure they agree with what we're saying before we say it, right?
Sure.
We had a guest, wonderful guest, Ben Shalati, who is a gay member of the Church of Jesus Christ. And again, homosexuality is totally fine to talk about, but if a parent wants to be specific in the way they talk to their kids about it, then we just say heads up, hey, this episode covers homosexuality, or this episode covers plural marriage. And so listener discretion slightly advised.
Sure. That makes sense. But I'm sure that people really like those episodes too, though, when they get to hear a little bit more of a deep dive when they have time. Yeah. We don't always have time, but we can make time, or road trip or whatever. Just plug it in.
And we really love to tackle things that matter. So we tackle the tricky things that no one wants to talk about, or we tackle the things that are really practical. And it's like, okay, here, this is actually going to make your life better. And so it's worth listening to. There's just not a lot of fluff around the podcast at all.
That's truly, in my stage of life, I don't have time for fluff. So that's really nice.
Well, you're welcome. No fluff for you.
Okay, so you've just named a couple of episodes that sound fabulous. Do you have a favorite or a couple of favorites?
Yeah, I definitely do. So I have always found the Abrahamic covenant kind of confusing. That is found in the Old Testament, where God makes a promise with Abraham. And in my church, they talk about it a lot and how important it is. And I've always been like, but why? Like, it's super boring. Like, this happened to an old guy thousands of years ago. And so we did an episode with Kerry Muhlestein. He's an Egyptologist, professor at BYU, and he blew my mind. He blew my mind. And I kept telling him that. And I'm like, you're so smart. And the only phrase that's coming to my brain is, you're blowing my mind. I sounded like an idiot on that episode, but really he made it so applicable and so important to me that I was like, okay, I get it. This makes sense. And so I loved that feeling of something I've been told my whole life is important. All of a sudden I get it. And I love that feeling. So Kerry Muhlestein, if you are interested in the Abrahamic covenant, or especially if you're not, you should probably listen to that episode.
Okay. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I will make sure to link that in the show notes so people can jump right to it if they are or are not interested.
Awesome.
Oh, where can people find you?
Oh, they can find me everywhere. I am not hiding. So you can find me on Instagram or my website. They're both Kristen Walker Smith. Kristen is spelled Kristen. And I'm on Instagram, my website. I do some YouTube, but that's where you can find me.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for chatting today.
You are so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want to hear about more podcasts, please follow or subscribe on your podcast app of choice. And just a reminder, if you want to step up your nail polish game without going to the salon, you can use my Olive and June affiliate link in the show notes to get 20% off a mani or pedi system. Talk to you soon.